Hey there, I'm Gretchen Rubin, one of the hosts of the Happier with Gretchen Rubin podcast. And in a moment, I'm going to be joined by Ingrid Fettel-Lee, author of Joyful. So in a moment, I'm going to wait for her to join. But while we're waiting, will you tell me where in the world you are? It is always so fun to hear where people are watching from. And before I bring Ingrid on, let me tell you about her. She is a designer and she has a wonderful blog and a feed called Aesthetics of Joy, which is super fun, and she wrote a terrific book, which I love, called, I want to get the subtitle right, called Joyful, The Surprising Power of Ordinary Things to Create Extraordinary Happiness. And so I'm very excited to be talking to her today. So let's see if we can get her to join. Yeah, and there she is, Aesthetics of Joy. Ingrid, is the magic of technology going to work for us? I hope so. It says she's connecting.
Hi.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm glad. It's great to see you.
Great to see you too.
And I love seeing your color. The colors in your back. I know you love color.
Yes, I know. I can show a little bit more of the.
Yes, fun.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so excited. There's so much I want to talk to you about because, I'm the hugest fan of your work. And I mean, I was looking at it and one of the key questions is, how do tangible things create intangible joy? And I'm just obsessed with that question. But I think in times like these, the initial question, and I think a lot of people are asking, and I'm sure you've thought about this and have talked to a lot of people about it, is it even morally appropriate to think about joy in our own lives when we think about all the suffering and injustice of the world? How do you think about that question?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this, and I've been getting this question a lot, and I've been getting the question of how do we hold strong emotions like anger, like guilt. How do we hold those things together with joy in moments like this? And is it even appropriate to do that?
Right.
And I think that what I would say is the first and most important thing to remember is that joy is a part of our resilience. So instead of thinking about it as a luxury, as a nice to have, I think it's really important to think about moments of joy as not superficial or trivial, but something that helps us stay engaged, helps us be more resilient for the future. And there's research that supports that, right? So there's research that shows that, I know you're well aware of it, but just for your listeners, that small moments of joy can help reset the cardiovascular system's response to stress. And of course, when we're feeling, confronted with the issues that we are at the moment, it's natural that we will feel stressed. So I think part of it is it helps us recharge. And I think the other part is that it helps remind us why we're fighting, right? Yeah. And why we're trying to change and why we're trying to make these broader changes in society. And so if we only focus on, the negative and we only allow ourselves the anger and frustration, then at some point we burn out and we start to lose perspective.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And there's just so much research showing that happier people are actually more interested in the problems of the world. They're more interested in the problems of other people. They vote more, they donate more money, they volunteer more time, they're more likely to help out. They're more effective when they do try to help. They're more resilient. They have healthier habits. It's like we really strengthen ourselves to move forward. And so I completely agree. And one of the things I love about your work, Ingrid, is that it is so concrete, because I feel like people get wrapped up in these like abstract concepts of joy and bliss and, and I like the way you're like talking about polka dots and circles and color. And it's like,
stripes.
I get fired up just thinking about, you're writing about confetti. Like I don't know if your final jacket had confetti on the cover, but I had the galley. I felt very special. And there was confetti on the cover, and I was like, I love confetti. It's so fun. It's a joyful thing. And so,
it is.
Yeah. So, what are you thinking about these days in terms of the tangible manifestations of joyfulness in your surroundings?
Well, there's a personal side to this, of course, because I am, I'll stand up and show you. I am,
Well, I knew that, but I didn't know if I was allowed to say anything.
2 weeks out from my due date. So
That's exciting.
Yeah, so there's definitely I'm thinking a lot about this with respect to my surroundings and creating a joyful space. I'm going to be a first time mom, so creating a joyful space for a little one, that's something new to me. But I also
maybe our listeners, does anybody have any great ideas? Put it, if it's, I don't know, anything that you think like, oh, this is just wonderful, a wonderful thing to do for like new parents. To help create a joyful space. That would be,
I would love that.
Like if there's a wonderful, like I remember I had this baby diaper cream that smelled terrible. And I was finally like, my little precious baby has to have something that smells good. And I'm actually underwire that I am going to throw away this tube almost unused and buy something that smelled wonderful. I think it was Musella. Like, is there anything that was just delightful that you had? Because there's so many wonderful things, soft things, beautiful smelling things.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Definitely beautiful smelling things. Well, one of the things is we initially bought this rocking chair, and as we were setting it, and I read in the reviews that occasionally that the seat might crinkle. It was, very affordable, and so so we bought it and we started to assemble it, and then I sat on it and I was like, oh, it really crinkles. Like there's no way. Yeah, it makes a noise. Like there's not going to be any way that when I'm like nursing a baby in the middle of the night that I'm going to be able to handle this noise. And so we went back to the drawing board. We sent the chair back and we ended up getting a rattan chair that I had just been eyeing for a really long time. My husband bought it for me as a gift and covered it with a sheepskin. And so those textures, those like soft,
Ooh, somebody's saying luxurious robe for mom. Yes.
Oh, that's a great one.
A robe. That is a great suggestion, but something light too. Like not one of those super heavy ones.
Yes, especially since he's coming July 1st is the due date. So yeah. So I think setting up textures is great. And then another thing that I did was I was very lucky this past summer. My dad came to visit, so a year ago came to visit and brought some of my childhood books. And I had been, I love like each one that I see. I have these very joyful memories of these stories he read to me every single night. And so I created a color-coded shelf with the books facing out. And so just using those covers as part of the decor has been a really joyful experience.
I love that. Well, because I knew it's funny that you said it, because since I knew I was talking to you, I was like, okay, what is a tangible thing that gives me joy? And I love children's literature and I love children's books too. And one is the Nutshell Library. Somebody gave this to me for Christmas. It's these 4 little tiny Maurice Sendak.
Oh, how cute.
One, Pierre, Pierre is very naughty. Chicken soup with rice, chicken once, chicken twice, chicken soup.
That I remember.
One was Johnny who sat by himself. But these just make me so happy. And so I love the idea of using children's books too. Because another thing is you will read them all a million bazillion times.
Yeah.
So, that's so fun. What a great idea.
Yeah. So that's been really joyful. But I'm also thinking a lot about how we incorporate tangible joy into, the broader, first of all, into our homes, given the fact that many of us are going to be spending a lot more time at home this summer than we expected. So I actually just put out a new free resource that talks all about how to have joy, how to find joy and create joy during this very unconventional summer. So if you can't travel this summer, if you can't do some of the things that you were thinking about doing, you can, find joy by staying home. So giant bubbles are one of the things that I think bring a lot of joy. Crafts like, tie dyeing. Like, I think this is a time to, while we're very aware of what we're losing, like what's disappointing and what we can't have, I think that it's also a time to lean into the weirdness, right? To like lean into it. Exactly. And so it's like, let's lean into this. And I think, a mutual friend, Laura Vanderkam, often talks about this idea of making new memories and how important it is to the things that are most memorable to us are the different things. And so
Yeah.
if you tend to go to the same place every summer and you're super disappointed that you can't go there, this may be in some ways a more memorable summer because you weren't able to. And so I think sort of harnessing that and saying, okay, well, what can we do with where we are?
Right.
One of the things related to that is digging into your surroundings. So getting guidebooks on the flora and fauna that live in your area and starting to notice, you know, what bugs are in your garden, what birds are nearby.
Right.
So starting to pay attention to the tangible qualities of your surroundings, I think can be really powerful right now.
Yeah. On the Happier podcast, we talk about being a tourist without leaving home, where, you know, there's a lot probably you can see not very far from your house, but you just never go. So if you're just joining, I'm Gretchen Rubin. I'm the host of the Happier with Gretchen Rubin podcast, and I'm talking to Ingrid Fettel-Lee of The Aesthetics of Joy and author of the book Joyful. And we are talking about how tangible things can make our lives more joyful. And if you have any questions for Ingrid, or if you have any suggestions for new parents, that's great. I love the idea of sheepskin. I hadn't thought about sheepskin, and I love sheepskin.
We're big fans. We have them everywhere in this house.
Yes.
Because they make everything softer, and it's
yes,
it's very comforting.
Yes, no, right. No, you just can snuggle up to everything.
Yes.
So like, it's interesting that you were saying this about like digging into our homes, because I was just reading some kind of business article about how perfume sales are down because so much of perfume sales, as you can imagine, are in person, but home scent purchases online are up because people are feeling like, well, I will pay for this candle or this scented whatever because I am spending so much time at home. So are there some other kind of like little things that you would say that are just kind of like, I know a big thing for you is like bringing nature in, and
yes.
You know, what are some like little kind of strategies that you think of how we could kind of boost our spirits through our home surroundings?
Yeah, well, one of them that I think is really a no-brainer right now is to move things around. So as we have been spending so much more time at home, you know, our homes have gone from being a place that we spend, you know, a few waking hours a day to all of our time for many of us. And for a lot of us, reopening is, you know, it's going to be slow, or it's not going to be happening for quite a while. So, so recognizing that, take a look at, you know, can you move pieces of art to different places in your home, or throw pillows? I move things around all the time. I have had these two cushion covers that I never filled, and I was like, oh, I'll fill those, and then I can move this other one that I've been eyeing for the nursery upstairs, and then I'll take the thing that was there and move it downstairs to the guest room. So I'm constantly moving things around, and it creates this feeling of freshness. So just being a little bit more flexible and fluid with your decor and moving things around can be a really powerful way to bring joy when you're sort of spending so much time in your surroundings.
Right.
I think related to that, you mentioned scent, and I think adding, like, thinking about your home as more of a sensory landscape. And so instead of just thinking about it as rooms full of stuff, thinking about what are the sensations. We talked about sheepskin and textures. Is there something you can put underfoot by your bed? That's a great place for a sheepskin, but it's also a great place for some other soft thing, you know, or where you're sitting and watching TV in the evenings. But adding textures also to your chair where you work. If you're someone who's working from home, adding something soft there, or something that's tactile, because again, when we move through the world, when we're going around to, you know, 10 different places in a day, we are exposed to so many different textures, scents, and other kinds of sensations. When we're in our homes, we don't have that. So thinking about ways to diversify those sensations, and maybe that's about having a different scented hand soap in the bathroom from the kitchen, from the guest bath, right? So that as you go to different rooms, you are, you know, it's not like your home needs to be a branded environment. You can have different scents, and then you have different experiences.
That's so funny. Variety. Really like a matching, and like, why bother? Like, have lots of things. Somebody's saying, what is a sheepskin? Can you please explain?
Oh, sure. It's yeah, I have one, like, almost, it's just too far for me to reach to show you, but it's basically like it is literally a skin of a sheep, but it's very soft, and you can get them, and you can get them from IKEA. They sell them. They're very easy to find, and they basically, you can drape one over a chair, you can lay them on the ground as a rug, and they're washable. I think it's one of the great things about sheepskin, especially for nurseries, is that they're washable, so you can throw them in the laundry with just like a nice wool soap and comb them out, and they're like new.
Yeah, they're very springy and soft, cushiony. They're very
Yes.
plush.
Yes.
And they're very natural feeling. So they have that kind of pleasure that you get from cotton or wool or cashmere, where it's a natural, it feels very natural. And so
Exactly.
it's something very satisfying about it. And somebody else has had a good question. In Australia, they're getting back in the groove. And someone said, do you have any suggestions for maintaining joy when you're getting back into the commute? Because I think for many people, not having to commute was a big source of joy. And now maybe there's a joyfulness in kind of the feeling of getting back.
Yes.
But there's also kind of the burden of the commute, which for many people is quite significant. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. It's a really good question. And also, I know that because I have a lot of people from down under in my community, I lived there for a while.
I didn't know that.
I did. I lived in Sydney for 2 years, and I know that it's the beginning of winter there. So I just released the summer guide, and I have lots of people saying, well, what about the winter guide? So I don't have a winter guide yet, but as you're getting back into the flow of things, I think one thing that you can do is a practice I call joy spotting, which is starting to notice little things that bring you joy along your commute or along your route. And this could be, I have a group called the Joy Spotter Society, and we have a weekly theme, and every week we look for something different. So this week we're looking for light, and we're just paying attention to qualities of light that bring us joy. And that might be a sunrise or a sunset that you see out the window of the bus. It might be reflections off a puddle. There are all sorts of, ways that can manifest, but taking time to notice and starting to look for color, look up and see, what do you notice upward? Those are often places to look to notice and spot joy. So I think turning it into a time where you're intentionally seeking joy can be a way to use that time to find, something that's uplifting as opposed to feeling like a chore.
That's a great idea. And it's making me think okay, so most days I take a walk in Central Park, and I usually follow the same route. And one of my favorite things in Central Park is a fountain called Bethesda Fountain, which is one of the most famous New York City. It's like an angel at the top, and it's very beautiful. And it's at the top. When I look at it, I'm at the top of a stairs. So it's like this very magnificent view. And I always pause and look at it and it's very interesting to see it change through the seasons and everything. But I could find 10 of those along the way. I'm sure I could look for this, I could look for that, because it kind of grounds me, and it's kind of like a little it is like a kind of a high point in a walk where I can kind of zone out, but it
Yes.
makes me kind of connect. And so now I'm going to think of, well, how could I have more of those along my route so that I have these moments of really stopping and noticing, oh, there's that tree. Sometimes there's just one magnificent tree, or there's this one bridge. I
Yes.
should really kind of discipline myself to look for these kind of sights.
Yeah,
Personal
it's
sites.
it's an incentive. I mean, you mentioned confetti. So sometimes you'll see little bits of paper confetti on the ground, and it's it's a reminder that there was a celebration there. And then that always sort of sends my mind off wondering, what was being celebrated, and what took place there that was joyful. So
Right.
There are always things, I think, if we sort of expand out our peripheral vision when we're in, when you have the luxury to be able to leave the house and go through your daily routines, to be able to do that, I think that that's a good way to spot on and share joy.
Here's a great question. So someone says, I love the books and blogs you've both written. Do you have other favorite joy authors to read while we wait for both of your next books, posts, and podcast episodes? Yeah. Do you have any favorite, joyful authors that you like to read?
That's a great question. I have so many, but for some reason, I'm totally blank in this moment, and I don't know why that happened.
Side note. Okay. Give me a thumbs up if you've experienced this. Okay. So just non sequitur. So there's a thing that they talk about where it's called I forget what the term of it is. Anyway, there's a glitch in our brains, and it's very widespread, where it's very hard for us to name a smell. If I put something like peanut butter under your nose, it's like people often cannot name a smell that you think that they would be able to automatically do, like coffee. We just have trouble putting words to smells. It's just a glitch in the brain. I think there's a glitch about what books do you love or what have you read recently, because I'm like, all I do is read. All I do is write it down. All I do is take notes. And somebody asks me, and I'm like, my mind is literally a blank. It feels like a glitch. I feel like it's not. And other people experience this, right?
It's
like the index cards don't pull up.
Right?
Give us a thumbs up if you. Yes, a lot of people are having a thumbs up. I think somebody needs to study this. If you are a researcher, study this, because it's a real, like, I feel the synapses struggling.
Yes. Totally. So one that I'm going to share, which I don't know, Gretchen, if you read this, have you read Pleasure Activism by Adrienne Maree Brown?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. So I mean, one of the things that I, have been making a commitment to do is not just diversifying I need to diversify my shelves. Like, a big realization over the past few weeks was that I need to diversify my shelves. But I think a big realization was that a lot of the writing and the research on happiness and joy is filtered through a white lens, because that's who's controlling a lot of the academic departments and the psychology labs, and so what I really love about Adrienne Maree Brown's work is she's basically taking a different lens on joy, and she's looking at it in the context of activism. And I think right now that's really relevant and really important. And she quotes a lot of, she sort of sent me down different paths to Bell Hooks, who's, a feminist, Black feminist writer, to Audre Lorde, to so there's a lot of really great rabbit holes that you can sort of go down from her work.
I love it when one book leads you to a lot of other books.
Yeah, but I think it's important, we're seeing a lot of, there's a lot of really important books being raised and sort of suggested right now on anti-racism. And I think it's important that we balance that with the joyful perspective as well, and recognize that, we need to see the full 360 of a culture. And so, for me, and as someone who studies joy, there are gaps that need to be filled in, because even one of the things I realized was, even when I write about colonialism and how colonialism has influenced our Western understanding of joy and happiness, right? And we have this sort of European lens, and how color was stripped out of our environments and things like that. I'm still reading primarily white writers writing about that. And so for me, there's a necessary corrective in starting to seek out some of these histories from indigenous cultures. And so that's a thing I'm seeking out, but that book would be one that I would definitely recommend right now.
Okay. So it's Pleasure Activism.
Andrea
Maree Brown.
Adrienne Maree Brown.
Yeah. Adrienne Maree Brown. Okay.
Yeah.
See, I need to write everything down, but I have this paper here, so I'll write it down.
But people in the comments have got it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Oh, yeah. My thing stopped scrolling. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm there. Thank you. Yes. Well, yeah. Ooh, I like Pleasure Activism and Joyful Activism. Those are both good titles. Yes.
Yeah.
Replete the name. Okay, that's great. And so, anything else spring to mind?
So another one, of course, we're doing a lot of cooking right now. So another one is Every Day is Saturday, which is a book I keep coming back to. And it's a book by my friend Sarah Copeland, who writes about really about how we can bring ease in cooking through the week. I feel our lives are maybe less bifurcated between week and weekend than they used to be. But I do think there's something about sort of rediscovering the joy of cooking. And that was a book that really brought me back to cooking, to thinking about cooking as something that's joyful, as opposed to a chore that I have to do. So that's another one.
Say the book at the title again.
It's called Every Day is Saturday.
I love that title.
So again, another very joyful theme, another joyful title. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're just joining, I'm Gretchen Rubin. I am one of the hosts of the Happier with Gretchen Rubin podcast, and this is Ingrid Fettel-Lee. She has the blog and the feed called Aesthetics of Joy, and she's also the author of the book Joyful. And we are talking about how tangible objects can help bring joy to our lives. And Ingrid, one thing that you and I are both obsessed with is color and using color. I love looking at your feed because you have so many colors. And I find that I have I'm an underbuyer, but one thing that I just really get drawn to is sets of markers, which I think to me represent like pure, like just color in its most, full of opportunity. It's like the potential of color.
Yes.
And we have so many sets of markers. And I bought something that made me incredibly happy, which is there was this felt tip pen set that's called like Candy Pop. But a lot of the colors aren't candy. They're like oxblood and dark brown. But I'm just using these felt tip pens to just take my notes. And I'm like, this is just making me so happy. Have you found a way to do something with color? Because I know you think a lot about color and do like you do all your fingernails a different color.
I do.
Yeah.
So you can see that.
There you are.
Yeah. And actually, because of the pregnancy, I've had to like look for more, safe ways to do that. But I've been able to find brands that are, safe and clean, to be able to keep up my manicures and do that at home. So I do this myself. It doesn't take that long. It's been really fun. And I noticed,
You're
a lot of people
not doing your toes these days. I'm imagining they're a little bit kind of inconveniently located.
They are. I think I was like 7.5 months when I managed to do the last one. And I was just like, and
the other side.
Yeah, I know. I had that thought. I was like, maybe I can get my husband to do one, like before I go in. But yeah, no, not much of that. Color coding books is something I recommend. I mean, I have my shelves done this way, but I'm always kind of like shuffling things around and maintaining them. But I think that gathering, like one of the things that a lot of us don't realize is that we have a lot of color in our homes. It's just not apparent because it's all jumbled together. So I think sometimes you can take things from different parts of your home. You can notice that, you might have a green vase and you have a few green books and you have, some other like little green, maybe it's a green bird or green knickknack or something like that. When you put all those things together, you have this pop of color that that becomes this vignette that really stands out. And so I love doing things like that. So curating these little pops of color.
Diana Vreeland, the legendary magazine editor, had this column, this sort of extravagant ideas column called "Why Don't You?" And one of her things was, "Why don't you decorate a room in nothing but green?" And she's like, celadon green, poison green, leaf green, moss green. She said it would take years, but it would be so extraordinary. And I just like in my mind, I think of that green room. And it's just the beauty of disparate objects unified by color is really powerful.
It's really simple too. And I think, I'm always looking for ways that we can add color or we can add, a pop of joy without having to go out and buy something.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily an underbuyer. I do occasionally like to, to buy things, especially the nursery. It's been fun to, find new things for that. But I do think that when we can, especially if we're not sure what what we want to create. I mean, I think it's always better to shop your home before you go out and shop the world.
Well, I think that that's one of the things that you're saying is that by rearranging things, by juxtaposing things in a new way, it's like they become new to us, even though, or like maybe you have a set of plates that you've put away. Well, maybe it's time to swap your plates. And now, or like things like the soap where you can have more variety, but you're not buying anything extra because you need soap for all your bathrooms, obviously. So it's like, but mix it up and have fun with it instead of just like buying the same one every time. So you don't have to buy the new stuff to have that kind of variety and novelty and freshness.
Totally. And actually the other thing that comes to mind is, so I'm a really big fan of sort of like a very casual decor at home. And so one of the things I was thinking about when I was making this guide for summer was how could you make any home feel like a summer home? Like, I I didn't grow up like having a summer home, but occasionally a friend would invite me along to one. And, you know, it's always like some sort of cabin, either in the woods or by the beach. It's sort of a little bit ramshackle. It's very close to nature. The walls are very porous. And there's always sort of beach towels thrown over things, right? It's like very informal and very casual. And there's something that just feels very, like you've had a change of pace. Like even if you're in your New York apartment, you can have something that has that sort of casual summery feel. And the idea of throwing beach towels or beach blankets that are sort of stripy and very thin over your furniture is one that I'm like fully a huge fan of. So sheepskins, maybe a little wintry, but you can just, I mean, so I have beach towels like over every chair now. I just, you know, I take them, I mean, often because they're like going in and out of the house with us, but just like draping them over something, the stripes are just so joyful.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to feel permanent.
Right.
But it's something that can just bring a little pop of color in for right now. So yeah, so that's one of the things that I was playing with, and I was just trying it, and I was like, oh, this feels really good. You know,
Yeah.
It makes my home feel like a summer house.
Right. And again, it's just not putting your beach towels away is all you need to do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. Good luck in the last 2 weeks. That's so exciting.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Again, if you want to read more of Ingrid's work, which I really highly recommend, this is Ingrid Fettel-Lee. Her book is Joyful, and I got to get the subtitle right. The Surprising Power of Ordinary Things to Create Extraordinary Happiness. And it's full of very practical ideas, a lot of research, and it's a happy book to read because it just like gets you very fired up. And her blog and her feed is called Aesthetics of Joy. Tons of fun, like always, gives me a lift to see what you've got going on there. You've got a new resource you said about like thinking about in the United States, like kind of where if you're going into the summer now, how to have a good
how to make more joy. Exactly.
Make
even
more joy
despite whatever constraints you're facing this summer.
Yeah, my mother told me once, the things that go wrong often make the best memories. And I think this could be a summer that we will remember forever because it will be very distinctive and different.
Yeah, I hope so.
Thanks so much. And everyone, let's keep our hands clean and our minds clear. Bye.
Bye.